if a relationship has ended, be it a relationship with a family member, a friend, or someone that I was in a relationship with, this person was in my life for just like to teach me a lesson or for me to teach them something, and then they could go their way and I can go mine.
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. All is good. Took a nap,
Um,
set
oh,
my
did
alarm
you?
so I don't forget. Yeah, I did.
There's something about taking naps that we as kids like we're allowed to do, and then somehow as adults it's frowned upon. At least that was my experience. But naps are for me have been rejuvenating and don't change because I'm an adult.
Well, I'm 48 and naps are like the new club.
Ah, okay. Well, that makes sense.
I never used to take naps before, and then when I reached like in my 40s, it was just like a nap looks good right about now. Let me just go experience a nap.
I mean, do you before were you just not sleepy in the middle of the day or?
Yeah, because work and life and things like that, especially work.
Oh, I
Um,
get you.
I'd be the type of person that if I had stuff that I needed to get done, I would just check everything off the list and try to get it done all at one time. So
I gotcha.
sleep
That
would
makes
actually go
sense.
to the back burner.
Yeah, I totally get that. Well, I'm ready if you are.
Ready? Let's go. Let's do it.
Sounds good. I like to do introductions of people, but I'm not that great at it, especially because I would love to know more about you. But that's what you're here for. So, Dhylles, if you could introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. I am Dallas Victoria, writer, founder, and editor in chief of No Fucks Given magazine. It's a magazine that's an experience because it amplifies voices of real people, real stories, real impact with no fucks given in real time. So that is the
I love
professional
that.
side. Thank you. On the personal side, I'm an empath. I was born in New York City, in Harlem specifically, oldest of four. Um, my mother's from Belize, my dad's from Haiti, so I'm a West Indian girl. I'm a Caribbean girl.
Oh,
Love New York. Traveled all over the U.S., lived in specific places, and love life. I'm an Aquarius, and I share the same birthday as Bob Marley and Axl Rose from Guns N' Roses.
wow, that's a great icebreaker. I like that. Can you tell us a little bit about what it was like for you growing up? I know one of the things we talked about before we hopped onto this call was the big talking point, which is generational trauma and being a trauma breaker and what that entails. But there's a story that leads up to that. So if you don't mind telling us a little bit about what it was like growing up for you.
Growing up was okay. I think that being introduced to my mom at 2 weeks old. What When I was born, and then at 2 weeks old, she sent me to Belize to live with my grandparents because she couldn't take care of me, and so it was really, really hard to be in a space from 2 weeks old to 4 years old, thinking your grandparents are your parents, and then at four, like, oh, that's your mom, and having to come from Belize, a place where I felt safe and it was so much freedom to it, to come to New York City where there's a lot of chaos and confusion to me personally. That was a lot to take in. So imagine being bounced around from 2 weeks old to 4 years old, from 4 to 14, and between that time being introduced to my dad after being introduced to my stepdad. So my childhood to me was very confusing at times, and also being the oldest of four, helping taking care of my siblings and those types of things. So I never really felt like I fit in with either side
Mm.
of my family. So I always felt like a loner, and I always felt like I had to pretty much take on the world by myself. And I developed dissociation, struggle, fight, and flight mode, and survival mode all the time because I had to like literally depend solely on myself, emotionally and mentally. Plus, there was a lot of abuse going on in the household. And when you're being abused as a child, you automatically dissociate. To me personally, that's what happened to me. And so not only was dissociation, but I became a people pleaser because I wanted someone to love me for myself, especially as a kid growing up. And that's hard for you to do when people are like, yeah, we do love you yet. And still, we want you to do this for us and so on and so forth. So there was like a lot of manipulation. And I didn't realize that there was a lot of manipulation and gaslighting and all those types of things until later on in life. And so it's pretty much something that I had to learn how to fix within myself because I inherited all the chaos from the family, plus my own types of trauma that I placed upon myself. So, talking about generational trauma and breaking those generational curses, it's like for me a never ending journey because it's something you inherited from like childhood. So becoming an adult, when you're learning how to take accountability, be responsible for yourself, then it's like, holy shit, and I have to fix my whole entire life all over again.
So you did mention a little bit about now that we're back. For those
Mhm.
that didn't know, I had some technical difficulties with the camera. Okay.
Oh, technology, don't we love it?
There's always the integrated camera, so that's what we're using now. Dhylles, I'm so sorry for that interruption.
Not a
We were
problem.
talking we were talking a little bit about your childhood and what it was like growing up for you. If you don't mind, just taking it back from there.
Yeah, sure. I mean, like I said, born in New York, Harlem Hospital. I was there for 2 weeks. Then my mom sent me back to Belize with her parents because there was really no way for her to take care of me, which I pretty much respect her for that because I could only imagine how hard that was for her to just, give up your child essentially for her safety and her well being. But it caused a bit of confusion because you're a kid, so you're like, okay, it's a two-parent household, and I'm here, la 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 la. And then at 4 years old, it's like, oh, here's your mom, and you're like, what the fuck? So it was a
Yeah.
lot of that. There was a lot of confusion going on, and a lot of moving around. So I was really not that stable in the household. But what it did do for me is when I was like 19, 20, I became a flight attendant. And so, with being a flight attendant, you still have to move around and go from this state to that state, waking up in California or waking up in Colorado or whatever. So, I felt like the moving around and not having that stability when I was a kid actually was a gift and not a curse for me personally because it made me learn how to adapt in any environment whatsoever. It didn't matter where I was, I would adapt, I would build community, I would make friends. It was easy for me to do it because I've mastered the skill for so long. And that's kind of like fucked up to say because as a child, you shouldn't have to do that. But as an adult, it's a different story. And so having to go through the trauma of being sexually assaulted as a child and having to rewire my mind around that as an adult and learning how to take accountability, responsibility, telling myself, you're a grown ass woman now, so you can't have that same victim mentality as a child because you're no longer a child. So, what are we going to do about this when it comes to healing the self? But also, what are we going to do about this when it comes to being around the family and breaking that family generational trauma and accepting the fact that I'm the person in my family that's supposed to break the generational trauma. So those are the things that I had to like really sit with myself with and be like, okay, well, you're here for a reason. This is one of your purposes in life. So might as well just get with it. And so that's how the journey began for me, breaking the generational curses in the family. And also remembering that specifically with my family, there was going to be a lot of judgment. Oh, you think you this, you think you that, you don't want to connect with us, you don't want to talk to us. And for me, it's like we don't have anything of substance to talk about if you're not working on your healing and yourself. And every year when I see you, it's the same shit over and over. I don't want no parts of it. And that was very hard for me to do because growing up, like I said, even to when I was in my 20s, I was a people pleaser because I wanted everyone to see me and love me and care for me. And that wasn't the case. So having to break those habits was extremely hard because I have a pure heart and I love all the people that I love in my life. I care about them. I want them to feel special and safe and da 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 da. And having to break ties with certain people, that was very hard for me. And sometimes I still struggle with that because I'm such a giver and I'm such a loving person. And when there's a person in my life that's no longer serving me or the relationship isn't working or if it's turning toxic, there's a point where I just be like, okay, I have to cut that person off. And sometimes that doesn't even come with a conversation. That's just like, okay, click, block, delete, goodbye.
Yeah.
Because at that point, it's like, it's why have a conversation when it's going to consistently be the same cycle and conversation over and over? We're wasting each other's time and life is too fucking short.
First of all, I want to say how sorry I am that you experienced that as a child. I think one of the uh I think the biggest violation I can think of a child is to rob them of innocence. I think that that is the that is the worst thing that you could do to a child. And so you having experienced that, I could never imagine. And to come back from that and to figure out who you are after
Mm-hmm.
something like that, um, I can't imagine. So I just want to just say that because nobody deserves that, and that
Yep,
this
I
it's my
appreciate that.
absolutely.
Uh, for a long time, when I used to share my story, when I used to speak and such like that, and people be like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry that happened to you." I'm like, "Oh, it's okay." And one woman brought it to my attention. She was like, "No, it's not fucking okay. You deserve to feel angry about what happened to you because it was someone in your life that claimed that they loved you and they still harmed you." And so I'd look at it like, "Oh yeah, you're absolutely right. It shouldn't have to be a situation, but like, oh, it's okay because it wasn't okay at that time, but because I was still processing it." And still dealing with it, it was just like, oh shit. So that experience with her speaking to me, I don't remember who the hell it was. I just remember the conversation was a gift. So now when I do speak about it, when I'm being interviewed, I'm like, oh, thank you, I appreciate that. As opposed to going, oh, it's okay, because she was saying when you say it's okay, you're still in essence enabling the behavior.
You're invalidating yourself. You're
Right.
validating your reality.
Mm-hmm. So I was like, oh
And
shit, okay, that's empowering to me.
yeah, and to be able to speak your truth is part of the
Mm-hmm.
journey of the generational breaking of the of that trauma, that behavior that is passed on from generation to generation. It's just that the saying like, "Oh, I was okay," or um, "I'm fine. I came out okay." I think that is an invalidation to the child that suffered that, and
Mm-hmm.
so I think that having that ability to tell your truth is, and I'm sure I don't have to tell you this, but you know this now, but
Yeah.
it's just something that, yeah, it's part of your story, and it's unfortunate, and of course you would never hope it on uh, anybody in your life, but it is part of your truth, and then that's part of being able to heal from it.
Yeah, and it's so crazy because once you've gone through that experience, you can spot out a mile away if that happened to someone else and how they're reacting towards it, or the way that they think, the way that they feel, or how they're choosing to live life. Like I can spot it a mile away when I see another woman or even a man. If they're around me, I can tell immediately if they were abused or something happened to them in childhood. It's just like the energy or something, or my intuitive knowing tells me like, oh damn, that person's been through this, that. Just based on my experience of what happened to me, you can tell, you can see it.
Yeah, and it's something that, the people pleasing part that you mentioned,
Mhm.
I think that's has large portion to do with that experience, because you have to seem lovable, and there's this feeling of like, why did this happen to me, and am I not lovable, did I deserve it? I think that was the biggest thing, that trauma for me was like, well, did I deserve that? And so you just want to be the most pleasant person you can be to the people who abuse you, because those are the people who you're supposed to feel safe around, and if you don't, so then what else is safe? Is there any
Mhm.
place that's safe?
Mhm. Yep. And then you start internalizing, and the imposter syndrome hits, and it's like, I'm not good enough. What's wrong with me? How can this happen to me? Maybe I caused it. Maybe it was my
Yeah,
fault. Maybe if I said this. Maybe if I did that. Da, da, da. So the people pleasing was just heavy on me,
right.
very heavy on me. And so I had to learn, like, okay, you are good enough, you are great enough. You don't need to please this one, this one, this one. You have nothing to prove to anybody but yourself. The validation and approval and acceptance does not have to come from anyone else but you. Because I was always looking for the validation and approval from friends and family, especially family. Because it's like, here, I'm here, hi. And I had to realize, girl, you don't fit in anyway. You
Mm.
completely different from everyone else in the family. Like I'm the only one that has short hair, that speaks truth, that's very honest and very resilient, that lives life out loud, that doesn't really care about what people think about me. I'm a person that I say fuck it and jump. I take a lot of risk in life when it comes to being an entrepreneur. To it don't matter how many times I've got my heart broken, I'm still open to love. I'm still open to falling in love because I don't allow those situations to define who I am. I've learned to define who I am for myself. And if there are people that I feel I want to experience in my life, I do that. If there's a state, a country I want to move to, I will do the research and I'll just be like, fuck it and go. Because again, life is so short. And me being someone who's had a near death experience in 2011, when you're on your deathbed and you're going, I shoulda, coulda, woulda, and I didn't, and you're looking at your life, and you have all the list of things you could have done, should have said, it hits different. And so when you overcome things like that, it's like, okay, life is so short. Even though it's long, it's still short. And it's an opportunity every day when you wake up to do
Hmm.
all the things that your heart desires for you to do. Even if you fuck up and you make a mistake, that mistake is a gift because it's teaching you something that you've learned from it. And then moving forward, you can go ahead and be like, okay, cool. I don't want to go down that road again because I know what the fuck it led me. And sometimes I still go down the road because I'm an Aquarius, I'm stubborn. So sometimes I've put my
That's part
hand
of
on
that
the heart.
resilience, though. That's part
It
of that
is.
resilience. That's where it comes from,
Mm-hmm.
is that unwillingness to let that keep you down for long enough. Because we all
Mm-hmm.
talk about getting knocked down, and everybody gets knocked down, and then we always talk about how it really matters is what you get up from, right? And I think that is part of that resilience that makes you you, is
Mm-hmm.
that generational breaker, because you're going to keep with generational trauma. I've been knocked down over and over and over again because it's just so much. There's so many layers to it. There's so much that comes from having to deal with one thing at a time, where it's like, okay, it's this thing that I didn't realize was an issue, and then this thing that's slowing me down, and so it's just one thing after
Mm-hmm.
another. You get knocked down over and over and over, and that resilience is what makes you a generational breaker, a generational trauma breaker.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's what was necessary for you.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I don't have any regrets about anything that's happened to me in my life, like none, because it's made me resilient and determined and strong, and it helps me to grow, and it helps me to always want to do like self reflection, introspection of the self, and like talk to myself every day, like, okay, like what could I be doing better? How can I consistently grow? Things like that. That's what it does for me. Some people ask me like, oh, you're not ashamed that you've been married and divorced 3 times? No, Elizabeth Taylor was married 8 fucking times. She didn't give a shit.
Right.
That my answer to that. Or how did you make the decision that you were straight one day, gay the next day? I'm like, again, I needed to go through introspection of the self and realize, yeah, men were nice and everything else, but I know my heart is with a woman,
Mm.
and so I'm not going to deny myself of that being a part of who I am because of friends and family and so on and so forth. Because when I came out, I was 40, and so it was a shock to everybody. And I remember my grandmother had a fucking fit, and I knew that I was very strong because she said to me, she was like, "Hey, can you promise me that you would turn back to the person that I raised and I love so I can die in peace?" And I said, well, first of all, I'm not 14, 24, 34. I'm 40 years old. And I said, second of all, your peace is for you. That's for you. So that's when I realized how manipulative people can be, because they will
Hmm.
utilize anything. And she know that I loved her dearly because she helped raise me. So she used anything. She used that to make me do something that I was no longer. So that's when I learned that, to just listen to what people say and how they react and what they use to try to get you to do things in their way.
Yeah. Can I ask? I have a ton of questions, by the way.
Yeah.
There's so much that I would love to know more about. But specifically, just to stay on course, I want to ask what you mentioned with your dad, like first having your stepdad and then meeting your
Mhm.
biological dad, and how confusing that was for you. Can I ask what was the relationship like with your parents growing up? Was it confusing until you hit a certain age where it was just they were coming in and out of your life, or was it a thing where every you had moments of like stability and then instability? How did that work?
I had moments of stability and instability because from 2 weeks old to 4 years old was stable with the grandparents, and from 4 to 14 it was stable with my mom. Met my
Mm,
dad when I was 9, 10 years old, and I would be going from New York to Boston, New York to Boston, because they broke up the holidays. Thanksgiving here, Christmas there, birthday here, Mother's Day there, Father's Day, like that. And when I graduated from junior high school, they made a decision for me to go live with my dad. I wasn't part of that decision. So I was in
Mm.
Boston for a good year, and I started high school there. Didn't like it, and it was rebellious, of course. So I went back to New York, still rebellious. Was doing my second year of high school, and my mom was like, "Hey, I don't like the road that you're going down, so I'm going to send you to Belize." So I go back to Belize from 16 to 20 years old. Was going to high school there, living with my grandparents, my uncle and his wife and his four daughters. And then my sister came to join me. So I was being a mom and a sister to my sister at the same time, going to school, working, helping out at the house, and so on and so forth. That was my life. That's the stability and the instability. Because even though I was there for like maybe from 4 to 14 and then 15 to 16, 16, 15 to 16, and then heading went to Belize from 16 to 20, there was a lot of instability because it was a lot of moving parts and a lot of it was moving around a lot, and I
So
didn't have
friend
to say
groups,
it.
so friend groups for you were sporadic. Is that correct?
Yeah, but the only thing about that, it was sporadic. But I have friends from Belize that I've been friends with for like 30 something years. I have friends, two friends from Boston I'm still friends with. If you
Mm.
click with me and we connect in that way, you're always going to be my friend. Always going to be my friends. I have friends 30 to 35-year friendships. And then I have friends I've met along the way for like 5 years here, 10 years there. But this is the thing about me. When I'm a friend and I feel your energy, I'm always going to reach out. Hey, what's up? How you doing? Text, call. I make sure I do that. And that's what helped me to build a better relationship with both my mom and my dad, because I was the one that decided to fight for the relationship with my parents and have them get to know who I am and get to know who they are. And there was a lot of forgiveness involved. There was a lot of like, okay, well, I'm going to show you and teach you how to love me. Because even now, when I speak to my dad, it's uncomfortable for him to say, I love you. So when we
Hmm.
get off the phone, I say it first and then he ends up saying it. And that's something that I had to teach him, and how I want to be shown love from my parents.
Right. And I think one of the things that I'm still in the midst of what you're just talking about with your parents and kind of treating them, realizing that they're human beings too, and they have their deficiencies. And it's almost like the way that I describe it, and you tell me what you think. You can tell me if I'm wrong or if you see it very differently. I'm
Mm-hmm.
open to a different viewpoint. I just the way that I've experienced it is, there came a realization that an acceptance that my childhood is effectively over, and as upsetting as that was for me, that it's, I don't get to be a kid to my parents anymore. I am now in a stage where uh, what has been done is done.
Mm-hmm.
And what I do now is I can either continue to look at them, villainize them, and say, "You robbed me of a childhood, or you did not give me a childhood experience that I felt safe in." I could do that, right? And there was moments in which I did battle with those feelings, but then there came a point where I realized, well, you know, what how do they feel about their parents, and is this part of that generational trauma thing where there's
Mm-hmm.
resentment passed on, and because I didn't get to experience a childhood, now I blame my parents and say, well, it's because of them that I am this way, and therefore I don't need to acknowledge any of the deficiencies I have because it's not my fault, right? And
Mm-hmm.
for me, what that ended up being is that there comes a point where, you just said it earlier, that I have to look at myself and go, well, okay, I'm an adult now.
Mm-hmm.
My childhood is done. It's over. So I have control of what happens next. And once I started to do that work, the healing work of addressing the feelings that I wasn't letting myself feel, because they were too painful, I was what I was doing was I was just letting the blame be the thing that keeps me from feeling the pain. And
Yeah.
so once I started to acknowledge the pain that I was feeling in therapy, and to begin my healing journey, I started to realize, well, okay, so we're adults now, and so we're essentially on even playing grounds. They are people,
Mm-hmm.
and I am another person in the world. So we're just operating in the same atmosphere now. Like there is no they tell me what to do. There is no like
Oh.
they're just people living in this world in the same way that I am now. They're people now, you know? And that part has been the part that okay, now I have to interact with them as I would a friend, as I would like a person I'm meeting for the first time, where it's like, okay, these are what things I like, these are things that I need, these are things that make me feel loved, and you know, hope that they reciprocate. And if they don't, I don't need that. But
Mm-hmm.
we're in the where I'm at now is that I can validate myself, but give
Yep.
them the opportunity in a loving way of like, hey, this is the way that I like to be heard and felt and to be made feel loved. You can do that, and I welcome you to do that. But if you don't, obviously there's a line for me too. And having that balance, that's where I'm
Mm-hmm.
currently
Yep.
at, is I'm trying to balance that. I haven't mastered it. There are times where it kind of like falls out of balance and I have to catch it, you know? And
Mm-hmm.
that's where I'm at now with that. Does that
Well, that's
reign true
good.
at all?
No, it rings true, completely 100% accurate. I felt for me, because I work with a spiritual teacher and I was in
Mm,
therapy off and on for 10 years. And one of my life coaches was a mentor of mine. And she was like, well, Dhylles, one thing that I can tell you is that the one thing I would suggest is that you mother your inner child. And whatever that inner child never got, you have to give it to the inner child. And I was like, the fuck does that mean?
what does that look like?
She said, for instance, what were certain things you wanted growing up that you were told no, that you can give to yourself? And I was like, ooh, there's a lot of things. She goes, okay, well, make a list of those things and fulfill your inner child's needs. So if it's going to the park and, swinging, or, if there was a favorite type of ice cream that you wanted or a favorite type of dress you wanted, and your mom and your dad was like, no, 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 not that you're an adult. You can give those things to yourself because you make your own money. You're independent. You're responsible. You don't have to answer to anyone to give you anything. And I was like, holy shit. So I started doing those things to make sure. But she said the first thing I want you to do is to make sure that your inner child feel safe. That little girl in you, make her feel safe. Make her trust you. Make her love you. Let her know that she is loved. She's protected. She can be free. And so when I started doing that, then that was a balance for me. And now, like when I do speak to my parents, because my mom, love her to death, but she has some ways about her. Sometimes I gotta feed her with a long spoon because she
Mm,
still thinks that she sees me as that 4 year old. I'm like, I'm not the 4 year old. So I have to be stern with her in conversation sometimes. Because normally before, I can tell when the little girl in me is showing up like, hi, mommy. And then when a grown woman is like, what's up, mom? How you doing? I have to put
mhm.
some bass in my voice for her to be like, oh, shit, I can't fuck with her right now. So it's learning how, it's learning how to balance it. And for a long time, I was holding on to the pain that she caused me, and was holding. I had a huge grudge against my mom. It was to the point where there was moments where I wouldn't speak to her for like 6 months to a year or whatever the case may be, because I couldn't let it go. And so I had
What
to
is,
learn. That
I'm so sorry to interrupt you. What is that about because I've experienced the same thing specifically. I think it's just the way I've interpreted that is that the feeling, for some reason, it hurts so much more from coming from a mother than it
Mhm.
does from a father.
Well,
I
she
don't
carried
know.
you for 9 months. She carried
Yeah.
you for 9 months. Our moms made a decision to have us. They made a decision to bring us into this world, to protect us, to love us unconditionally no matter what, to never harm us, to make sure that whatever it is that they've been through that was rough, that was bad, that experience would not come upon us. They were the first protectors. They were the first love. That's the first person that you set eyes on. I had a 4 hour past life regression last year, and I was under hypnosis, and I felt myself in my mother's womb. I felt when she first held me in her arms. I felt when her tears dropped on my cheeks when she first laid eyes on me. And for all of that to just be like, okay, treated me all types of fucked up as a kid, embarrassed me, did this, da, 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 da. It's like that's the first heartbreak. Your first heartbreak is
Mm,
from the child that I experienced was from my mom. That's why it was
wow.
so hard for me, because it's like, why did you bring me into this world to hurt me? And why did you bring me in this world where other people saw that you hurt me and ended up taking advantage of me the same way you did, and you did not protect me? That's where it comes from. That's what I experienced with that. Does it
You
make
did not
sense?
protect me. Yeah, that
Mm-hmm.
line. You did not protect me. Uh, yeah, that's it. Thank you. You put
You're
words into
welcome.
that. Thank you. That was it. Um, can I ask you? What
Hmm.
was it like then? What was it like coming into your own personality? What was it? When did it become clear? Was there ever a time where it's like, who am I? When was that for you?
It was that happened to me when because in my 20s I was exceptionally promiscuous. It was to the point,
Mm,
the analogy I would give is I am a plate of food, filet mignon, mashed potatoes, carrots, nicely seasoned, chef's kiss,
mm,
and you just put it on the top of a garbage can and you just give it to everybody in the world and say, do whatever you want to do with me because I don't give a fuck about myself. I
mhm,
was abused growing up, so this is me. I'm supposed to be abused, and I just allow people to abuse me.
mm,
And I was sitting in my apartment one day, I'd broken up with this guy that I was dating, and I felt the urge to drink everything in my apartment: perfume, alcohol, detergent, Clorox, the whole 9 yards. And it was like a hunger and a thirst I've never felt before in my life. And I heard, just do it because nobody will miss you anyway. Nobody loves you. Nobody cares about you. So I felt like it was like a demonic energy in my spirit that was um, encouraging me to take my life. And so I had to call my mom and like, just put me in a cab because I didn't have any money. And I'm like, because you won't have a daughter the next day.
mm.
That was my breaking point. That was my moment where just like, shit, I could have listened to that evilness that was inside me to tell me to do these things to myself. And I would not be the person I am today. I wouldn't be able to be as resilient and strong and a very powerful person as I am right now if I had listened to that voice. And that's when I started doing the work. And then I met my second ex-husband, who's like one of my best friends, and he introduced me to Louise Hay
Mm.
and Lucinda Cross. And I started listening to them and started forming affirmations. And the one thing that Louise Hay was talking about is that you can heal yourself and you can heal your generational trauma. And I listened to her. Like, you remember when they had, well, how old are you? Before I ask you this
I'm
question.
I'm 28.
Okay, you might remember when they first had the little iPods.
Hmm. The
So
classics, the ones with the
yes,
scrolls. Hmm. Yeah.
so I listened to her all day, every day on the way to work, on the train, walking down the street. I would listen to her every single day. And the other person I listened to was Lisa Nichols, and there was one video she said about I woke up to myself, and that shit hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, fuck, I am waking up to myself. I'm
Mm.
waking up to who I want to be, who I want to create, who I want to define within myself, and it excited me, and it gave me the boost of confidence and more self-love that I needed to know that I'm meant to be here in this time, and that everything that happened to me was supposed to happen because I am the trendsetter, trailblazer, innovator who is here to change the lives of everyone on this planet.
And
That's
in
my job.
order to do that, you have to have gone through something like that to
Mm-hmm.
prepare you for the amount of stress that and hard work that comes with that specific task
Mm-hmm.
of breaking that being a generational trauma breaker is one of the most rough things that a human can go through, is just the generation. It's I wrote an article about it recently. The way it was defined when I interviewed a trauma therapist, and we
Mm-hmm.
kind of discussed this specific topic about the way generational trauma works is that essentially it's not just you passing on the same size stone through
Mm-hmm.
generation to generation. It is you building upon it, adding weight, and then passing on. And
Yep.
so just generation after generation of it not being dealt with gets harder and harder, because not only are you receiving what the things that they are passing on from their experience of life, you're also building upon it with your own coping mechanisms, and you're
Yep.
putting things on it that wasn't there before, or adding
Yep.
in strength, and so it becomes heavier. And so the next generation that does get passed that on, if it's not heavy enough to crush you in your life, then it gets passed on to the next generation, and they carry the heavier stone until it comes a point where you can't move anymore. And so in order for you to be able to exist, you have to be
Mm-hmm.
able to get this weight off you.
Yeah.
And
And
that's
here's the thing: a lot of people don't know how to get the weight off of them, even if they want to start doing the work of healing. They have no fucking idea how to do it because they weren't taught that. They know how to hold on to it and not let it
mhm,
go and keep on holding on to the grudges and the pain and how this happened to them and that. They know that, but when it comes to letting it go, like fully letting go, people have no fucking idea how to do that. They don't know. Even if they started just like, but how do I do it? How do I do it? How do I take this pain away that's been hurting me for 15, 20 years? And then if you haven't been through it, you wouldn't even know how to answer that damn question for them
Mm.
or how to help
It's
them.
terrifying. It's a terrifying realization when you realize this thing isn't moving,
Yep.
and I'm struggling to breathe with this thing on me.
Mm-hmm.
I and so you mentioned like an awakening. I've experienced, by the way, something similar to that, and I think it is you would call it like a spiritual awakening for me,
Yep.
or awakening of self, whatever, however you want to phrase that. But for me, there was like just the being crushed just repeatedly over by this weight to the point where it's like I can't hold it, and I just collapse. And that's
Mm-hmm.
what happened to me in my life. Is just like I can no longer walk with this thing, and I had to look at myself honestly and go, okay, what now? What do I do? Because I can't move.
Mm-hmm.
And the only thing to do is to face now the thing that I was trying to walk away from and go towards it, which is every fiber in my body tells me not to do. And that is the awakening for me, the spiritual awakening of this is why I'm on this earth.
Yep.
And so either I fulfill it now, or this is just going to get more difficult.
True. Mine came to me. I moved to Savannah, Georgia, and I had a friend of mine. She was a practicing priestess, and she told me she had a dream about me before I went there that I would have three ancestors waiting for me. And I'm like, the fuck, ancestors? What the
Mm.
hell? She said, when you go to your apartment, sage your home. She gave me some sage, and she told me exactly what to do. She said, light a candle and a glass of water, and you invite them in. And I was like, okay, I could do that. I invited them in. I was like, you guys can come in now. And I'm like, this is stupid. And so when I did that, I experienced three hugs back to back that brought me to tears. Brought me to tears. But it truly started after that near death experience in 2013. Me and my ex husband, we went to Puerto Rico. And I had a vision of an old woman that was going to change my life. I didn't realize the old woman was a damn spirit. And so we went to the museum of Doña Fela. She was like the first leader president of Puerto Rico. And her spirit was talking to me. And I'm in the museum and everybody looking at me like I'm crazy. And there was one tour guide. She was like, hey, I have a message for you from Doña Fela. She was saying that she was she was for the orphans of Puerto Rico. She didn't have any children. She was just telling me her story. And I
Mm-hmm.
felt a hug from this woman and I broke down in the museum. And I realized, I was like, shit, my life is not the same. It's different after the near death experience. Something shifted in me. So going back to Savannah, I started becoming a priestess, and I had my altars in my house. And I remember one day I sat in front of my altar for like 30 minutes, um, asking God, my ancestors, and my spirit guides to remove what no longer serves me. I was not specific, and I did that for 6 months, and I went through the deepest, most powerful dark night of the soul, shadow
Mm-hmm.
work you even go through. I was shown parts of myself that I disconnected from, that I needed to heal from, confront, and fix. And one of those things was from 25 years old to 34 years old, I had experienced miscarriages, and I was so disconnected from my mind, my spirit, and my body. I did not mourn the loss of my children, and I had to learn how to do that. So that experience taught me to really, really dig deep in me, and all the things that I was shown were things that I needed to fix. The other thing that I had to work on back then too was the person who abused me had died in 2016, and his spirit came to me to ask me for forgiveness, and I had to release him because he still was in purgatory because of what he did to me. And that was the hardest thing I could have done, to because my mind was like, fuck you, die and just burn in hell. But because I was going through this spiritual transformation, my heart needed to be pure and say, you know what, I forgive you, be free. And learning
Can
how
I
to do
ask?
that.
I'm so
Uh-huh.
sorry. Can I ask what? How did you know in what state he was in? Was there like a conversation where you asked him, or where he told you, or you just like
I
somehow just
saw it.
knew?
I saw it.
What did
I
it look
saw it.
like?
It was just black and eerie and dark and just misery. That's what it felt like. And he was just like, I can't move. I can't move. I'm just stuck. And my assignment is to come to you and ask you to forgive me for what I did to you. Heard it clear as day. Just like, because I work with the Egyptian goddess Isis. That is my spiritual mother. She named me Phoenix. Phoenix is my priestess sacred name.
Hmm.
And rising from the ashes, that's what I've always done. I've learned how to do that. And I was in transition of getting that name from her, but that was the one thing that I had to do. The second thing I had to do was the deep, dark, vengeful Dillis, the one that is manipulative, the one that is hit you below the belt, wants to hurt you the way that you hurt me. I had to learn to put that bitch in a straitjacket and put her in shackles and throw her in the back of the closet of my mind. I didn't want to deal with her, and I had to face her. I had to face her. I had to love her. I had to ask her to forgive me for abandoning her. I had to do all those things. And I didn't want to because she's vengeful.
Right. And it's hard to accept that because it's easier to just push it away and be like, that's not me.
Right.
That is something else. That is some, you
Mm-hmm.
put blame on whatever it is. That's something else. It belongs to somewhere else. It's not me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all those things are part of you. And to learn to love them is a really difficult thing. And I do want to also ask about you mentioned the near death experience. Can I ask about that? What
Mm-hmm.
what what happened?
I was pregnant at the time, and I had a fibroid, and instead of the because and I was pregnant with twins, instead of the fetus growing, there was no fetus. The fibroid was growing, and so I had to do a DNC where they had to take out the empty sac out of my body, and that caused the fibroid to get infected, and the
Mm.
infection had spread through my body. And I was going to work, and I was having fever and chills, and I'm like, the fuck is going on with me? So I went back to the doctor, and they were like, we were gonna have to like rush you to the hospital because something's not right. And so when I went to the hospital, the fibroid had grown to the size of a grapefruit, and it was infected, and the infection was going throughout my body. So they tried like 8 to 10 different antibiotics. None of them work. And like on the 11th day, I woke up in the morning. My blue lips was blue, body was gray, and I was like, oh, okay, this some bullshit. And the doctors was like, yeah, we need to do something because you're gonna die because it was the infection spread. It spread to my bladder. They had to put a catheter in me because I couldn't go to the bathroom. They had to put a PICC line in my arm because none of the antibiotics was working, and they didn't want to continue just sticking me with shit. And finally, one worked, and the fibroid imploded, and all that liquid started seeping out of my body. It just smelled like death.
Mm.
And so on July 13th of 2011, I had to have the surgery to remove 4 fibroids that was on the in, that were on the outside, and the biggest one was the size of a grapefruit, and that was the one that was causing the infection. It almost killed me.
Did you ever go like unconscious? What was there a moment where you were like, oh, something's
Yep.
really wrong?
Something was really wrong, and I just felt death. Like it just felt, like my life was about to just be done and over with. That was just the feeling it gave me.
What was how long did you take to recover?
It took. Here's the thing about the recovery. I was in recovery 3 weeks, and within those 3 weeks, I started having a pain on my right side, and I didn't know what the hell it was. And I thought it was gas at first. And my ex-husband found me on the floor in a room and took me to the hospital and found out that my gallbladder was damaged beyond repair. So I was 3 weeks of just coming out of having a myomectomy where they removed the fibroids, and I was going into another surgery to remove my gallbladder. Yep.
Gallbladder removed. I've heard a lot of intestinal issues happen after that. Is that real? Is that a thing?
For me, no, there were no intestinal issues. But what happened to me was I had that surgery in 2011, and then 2018 the fibroids came back, and that's when my doctors was like, "We're gonna have to do a hysterectomy on you because your fibroids are gonna continue coming back, but we can do a partial." So, at the age of 41, I had a partial hysterectomy where they took out my uterus and
Mm.
my fallopian tubes and all that kind of stuff. So yeah,
That's a lot to happen in a short time period.
yeah, yep.
What is you mentioned the awakening that happened. Was it right there, around there, right after that? What does that look like?
something in me shifted around that time, and I started becoming aware of myself, and that's when I realized, because my ex-husband was like, "You're a closet lesbian." I'm like, I don't know what she's talking about, because I wasn't aware of myself. And so when that happened, I started looking at women way different, and I was like, holy shit. And me and him we sat down, we had a conversation, because we were chill like that, and we
Mm,
communicated very well. And I was like, hey, I want to explore this side of myself, because I think you're right. I think there's something with me and women. And so he was like, hey, go right ahead and do so. I want you to be happy. And that's when I discovered that, yeah, I'm definitely gay, and, walked away from the marriage gracefully. Like I said, he's one of my best friends till this day, because he understood. Mind you, my ex-husband's 18 years older than me. So he's done every drug known to man.
wow.
He was in Studio 54. Like, he could tell me exactly what heroin felt like, crack cocaine, the whole 9 yards. Plus, he was an escort. So he slept with
Mm.
so many women, and I was just like, intrigued by it. I was sitting there by eating dinner like I'm watching a movie. He's telling me all this shit. So we talk like that. And so I think it was my second girlfriend I was with, and we were polyamorous for a year. And the more I was connected to her, I was like, yep, you're absolutely right. I am gay. And I had to walk away from the marriage, and, be brave enough to come out and say, hey, this is who I am. That's not who I am. And it
I
was
see why
painful.
he's your friend.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, the level of self love you have to be like, I don't think you're in this with me. Like in terms of um, relationship wise, like this is not your thing,
Yep.
and I think you should explore what is
Hmm.
not only love for himself but love for you. That I just want you to experience love in the way that you need to experience it, and if that involves not being with me, I'm okay with that. That level of
Yeah.
love is, I see why he's still your friend.
And he helped me break those generational curses and cycles and things like that, with just conversations and encouraging me and so on and so forth. And I've always said, if he was a woman till this day, we would be together, but actually found somebody that's very much like my ex-husband, that I'm very, very much in love with, love this woman to death. Like, she is definitely somebody that I've prayed for, manifested, wanted, needed, so on and so forth. And they're very much kind of like alike, in the same of how I'm being treated with the affection and love, because I'm a very affectionate person, highly affectionate. I love hugs and kisses and the whole 9 yards, all that stuff. And he was very much like that with me, and he always wanted that from me. And so when I told him about her, I'm like, I met the person. I met the person that's kind of like how you were with me, but in the form of a
Hmm.
woman. He was like, I'm happy that you have that, because that's all I wanted for you.
And we
So,
could talk about spirituality in that sense because we talk about twin flames, or
hmm,
there are certain type of people that come into your life that fulfill certain parts, so certain roles to help you get to certain places. Like, have you ever heard of soul contracts?
yep, I know about all the soul contracts. We have one right now, talking right now.
Exactly. And
It's a
so
soul
that's
tie.
exactly correct. And so that's one of those I feel that it's a soul contract with that person where it's like,
Yep.
I'm going to be in your life to guide you through a certain period of time, and then once that time is done and you've learned what you're supposed to learn, that will change, and it'll be either over in that we don't talk anymore, or
Yep.
over in that our relationship changes.
Yeah, for sure. And there's people in my life that I knew that were only going to be there for a season. There's
Hmm.
people in my life that I have in my life that I know is going to be in my life for a lifetime. And there's people that was in my life for moments. And so I know which role those people play in my life. So if a relationship has ended, be it a relationship with a family member, a friend, or someone that I was in a relationship with, this thing is not that hard, because I knew, like, eventually this person won't be in my life anymore, or this person was in my life for just like to teach me a lesson, or for me to teach them something, and then they could go their way and I can go mine.
Yeah. And there's a lot of appreciation that for me has come from that realization that actually we agreed to do this,
Hmm.
and for a certain period of time, and that they were supposed to help teach me something, and I was supposed to help teach them something, and
Yep.
then they're part of that journey that gets you to where you're supposed to be. So I there's such gratitude that comes from that realization.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, he's one of my best friends. He was diagnosed with cancer, throat cancer, in
So sorry.
2023. No, he's good. He's real
Oh,
good.
okay.
He's healthy and all the other kind of stuff. And that's how I know that he's always going to be family, because that shit broke my heart. Like, I was so afraid calling him every day. You better go to fucking their chemotherapy. I was on getting on his nerves. He was like, I got it. But we're just that close. So he's definitely someone that's always going to be in my life. I think that we were meant to be there for each other for a moment in time where, like, I helped him find his long lost sister and he helped me find myself. And there were instances where we had to learn how to give each other grace and compassion, and where true forgiveness in a partnership and a relationship comes from, and what that looks like, and how we want to move forward in, separately in different relationships. And he also found a love of his life, but unfortunately her life ended because she had cancer and she died in 2022. So I was there for him through that. And, I was very happy that I was able to be there for him whenever he was going through cancer as well, because when I was having my near death experience, he was there for me. So
Right.
we have this kind of special bond. And so he always has a place in my heart as this amazing person who's been there for me. He's one of the people that really, when you find someone that can love you unconditionally, no matter, what you do, how you are, he's like that with me. And I'm just like that with him.
You took the words what I was just about to say, which I was going to ask you if you felt that. I mean, my theory is right, and I can't prove it yet, but I suspect this to be the case, which is that love is unconditional and it supersedes romance. So
Hmm.
he's unconditional love means that no matter what, and
Yep.
so you maybe I'm and for a moment I'm here romantically for you, and then for the next I'm here for you as a friend because I care about you, and it supersedes romance. And
Yep.
I believe that that's what we're all here to learn is unconditional
Hmm.
love and what that entails.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've had people in my life love me unconditionally, and it wasn't even people I was in relationships with, but just like my friends and, few family members, and I've done the same for them. So I know what that looks like in different areas, and, with different people that I've experienced in my life, which is a beautiful thing. It's a gift, because unconditional love is definitely being able to love a person despite their imperfections, despite the moments when they're having a bad day or they're snapping at you or whatever. Because to me, it's like, I've done the same thing to people. And so when it comes to loving someone, you're loving them to their core entirely. It doesn't matter, like, how they are, or if they're having a bad day or whatever. You just love that person. And so for me, that's how I am with everyone across the board. I'm going to love you because I love you. I don't love you because there's an agenda or anything like that, or what you can do for me. Like, no,
Right.
that's not what that is.
So let me ask you, how are you on time? Because I do have some questions for you, but I want to be
I'm
respectful
good.
of how much time. Okay.
Mhm.
So what was your journey like for healing? You mentioned going through therapy and then also going through the past life regression.
Mhm.
What was that like?
It was hard as fuck and uncomfortable. Lots of tears, lots of crying. Allowing my heart to break as many times as it could, and just mending it back up together in a different way. And it was also rewarding and freeing at the same time, because I was able to, like, get clarity and get answers of why things happened the way they did. When I did the 4 hour past life regression, there were questions I asked the hypnotherapist. Why do I think the way that I think? Why do I act the way that I act? Why am I so stubborn? And why all of my relationships failed the way that they failed? And when I went through the whole past life regression, she took me back to the points in time to see myself being abused. And she was like, take the little 7-year old and the 13-year old and place them in a triangle of light. We're going to merge them together so they can heal, because that's part of your healing. And then she showed me the 20 something year old that was highly promiscuous and placed her in that, so I could become the whole person, the little girl, the teenager, the 20 something, 30, all that. And then she was like, by tomorrow morning, you'll have all the answers to your questions. And I did. I woke up, I had all these fucking downloads and messages to the point that I couldn't even be typing fast enough on my phone. And a couple things I realized is that when it came to my relationships, I didn't advocate for myself enough. I compromised all my deal breakers. I pretty much put my partners before me, and I really didn't give myself grace and compassion, because I was giving, 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 and doing, doing, and doing, that I didn't give them enough opportunity to do for me or be there for me, because I took over everything and I controlled everything, which was not a
Right.
good thing. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense, and I've experienced the opposite, right? Of the not being like the I've had my previous partner used to do that a lot, where it was like the people pleasing, and
Mm-hmm.
she would want to do everything I want to do. I'd be like, no, let's do something that you want to do. And she'd be like, no, 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 no. We should do that. And so then there was no opportunity for her to show her sides and what she likes and watch things she wants to watch. And so eventually that turned to resentment, where it's
Mm-hmm.
like, I can't be me.
Yep.
And yeah, I can only
Mm-hmm.
imagine.
Yeah, with my partner now, it's not a composition per se, but we very much are catering to each other. We're very much affectionate with each other. We're very much serving each other in that way. And it's a balance, and it's something that she's not used to, something I'm not used to. So we're both trying to get used to this thing and learn how to balance it off, because I'm like, what can I do for you? What do you need? How can I support you? And then she's like, I don't know how to answer that question. And then when it's turned back on me, it's like, I don't know how to fucking answer that question. So we're just navigating through it together and making sure that it stays healthy and does not get toxic in those situations.
I love that. I hope that that continues to be how you guys interact, because that sounds good.
It is good. And just having those uncomfortable conversations, like, what are you feeling right now? And it's like, okay, well, I feel this way, or I feel that way, or this is what I'm experiencing with you, da, 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 and vice versa. And like, don't hold back to say what it is that you need to say. Of course, be respectful and loving, but I want to understand you to the depths of your soul of how you're feeling and which ways that you're feeling it. So I know how to like act accordingly, speak accordingly, how I can be hold space for you and be there for you at the same time, where you can be your full authentic self with me and not be afraid of that.
Mm. Yeah, that's I'm so glad that you mentioned that, the being afraid of authentic self. I think that was I think that that's a hard thing to do, because it's vulnerable to
Yeah.
in a relationship, to show you who I am, to no protection, no walls up,
Yep.
just this is me. And that's really scary to show somebody, because they can hurt you very easily with it, with that
Oh yeah.
knowledge.
Yeah, I was in
So,
a narcissistic abusive relationship for a year, but this person studied
mm,
me to a T. Everything I said, what I felt, how I thought, everything. And she got me exactly where she wanted me, where she isolated me from friends and family, where I had no money, I had nothing. And I was trying to like build myself up and everything. And she was a traveling ultrasound tech. So I would just be on the road with her. And it gave her more of an opportunity to isolate me and kind of
right.
like keep me away from everything and everyone, which I've known, and then use my spirituality against me, knowing that I work with Egyptian goddess Isis, knowing that, I'm very connected to my ancestors, and pretty much just camouflaged herself as this beautiful person, but at the same time, she was just like evil, so
Yeah.
come out that situation. And, when you look at people when they go through abuse and domestic abuse and relationships, and I was the person like, that'll never happen to me. And then when I was in it, I was like, oh shit, it is me. I am being emotionally abused. I am being psychologically abused, spiritually abused, the whole 9 yards, and I didn't want it to get to physical abuse. So I had to like muster up the strength and the courage to just be like, fuck, I need to get out this situation like right now, or else I knew in my heart that either I was going to kill her, she was going to kill me, that it was just getting to that point. So I know what that feels like as well. So I know the difference between when you're in a relationship with somebody who is healing and doing the work and wanting to be healthy, or someone who is surface healing, or they're narcissistic and they're just portraying something that they're not.
It's terrifying to come to
Mm-hmm.
that realization, because you hope that they are what they say they are, and then you only know what authenticity looks like based off of what you do. And
Yep.
I think one of the scariest realizations I had made as an adult is that people don't see the world like not everyone sees the world like I do.
Yep. And not
and
everyone thinks like you.
and that's scary, because it's like, well, for me, for example, everybody lies. First of all, everyone lies in some way, shape or form. Everybody lies. But there's a
Mm-hmm.
difference between people who lie comfortably and people who try not to lie.
Mm-hmm.
And and the people who lie comfortably, those are the ones that are the scariest, because they have no problem creating a false narrative so that you can be attracted to them, and then they pull
Yep.
you in, and then
Mm-hmm.
you trust it, because it's like, well, I wouldn't do that. Right? Like, I would
Right.
I say I show who I am, And so I wouldn't want to do that to somebody else. So I don't think anyone would do that to me. But then you realize that not everyone sees the world like you do.
Yep, I had to learn that with myself, that not everyone sees the world the way I do. Not everyone is as genuine and loving and caring and forgiving and compassionate the way that I am. Not everyone is willing to go the extra mile to make another person feel loved and cared about and special. People will use that against you to get what they want from you. And they will do it time and time again because you're allowing it to happen. So the one thing that I had to learn is taking responsibility that I gave over my power to other people, and learning how to take the power back and not allowing that to happen again. That's the one thing. The other thing too is like when I see it happening, to just be like, all right, cool, bet. You cool, but you're gonna be cool over there because we're not doing this right now.
Right, right.
Be over there.
Exactly. And that's part of boundary setting. I think that that's knowing yourself so well that you know where the lines are and when they're being stepped over. It's not mean. It's just simply being loving to yourself to step away. And that part is something that was hard for me. Was leaving is a thing that I was like completely against. So it's like you have to do everything in your power to make it work. And that's you stay. We don't leave. You stay. And that is something that I had to learn. To love myself meant that sometimes I was going to have to leave situations where I did not feel loved.
Yep, I've done that millions of times. I cannot tell you, when it came to me loving myself, I would get up and just be like, gotta go, gotta go. And that could be friendships. Like I had a 15-year friendship with somebody I was friends with, but over the years, I realized she became very toxic, and she was just like, she gaslit her own self. And I'm like, no. And it's so many times you can tell a person certain things and so on and so forth. And last year, I just decided, you know what, block, delete. You can't be in my life no more, with no explanations, because at this point, I'm going this way and you're like all over the fucking place. And I've already done that dance with myself in my life. And so I had to figure out who I wanted to give access to. And I left a previous relationship as well because I didn't feel like I was being myself. I didn't feel like it felt like love. And I didn't feel like I can talk to her about anything. So I decided to end that relationship as well. So for me, it's not that I wanted to hurt anybody when I'm in a relationship with them, but it's like, if you're coming to me and you're saying, yeah, I'm going to do this, I'm going to be this person this way, da, 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 I'm holding you accountable as I'm holding myself accountable to be
Right.
consistent, to be respectful of you and to love you. But if you're not doing the same to me, then I don't feel like way back in the day, like our grandparents and our moms and our dads did, okay, we're going to stick it out. I'm not that chick. I am not her. That's why I've been divorced 3 times. Because
But
I don't feel like I need to sacrifice myself and dim my light and conform to someone that I'm not because I want to please you. It's
and
not fair to me.
it's not hateful, or it's not you wishing them bad. To leave a situation that reminds me of the soul contract thing.
Yep.
You're there to teach them something, and then they're there to teach you something, and so you guys have to fulfill your parts, which means that when they teach you what you're there to learn, and it's
Hmm.
time for you to go, do that, because that's part of the contract.
Yeah. I tell people I don't give pink slips, severance pays, 2 weeks notice. I'll be out. I'll be gone.
Because
Nah.
if you drag it out, if you drag out something that's supposed to happen anyway, it's going to happen
Here's the
anyway.
thing with me. When it came to the women that I dated or the woman I was married to, I don't have relationships or connections with my exes. None.
Right.
Because we're women, we're emotional. And I don't want to hear, oh, I miss you. And I don't, because that's disrespectful to the person that I'm with. So I never do that. When it came to my ex-husband, that's a different story by itself because I know we don't want each other. We don't look at each other
It's
that
not
way.
romantic.
It's not. So when it comes to women, like the person I'm with right now, that's my person. So anybody else that I've spoken to, have relationship with, gotta go. Peace out. You could never have access to me again because I respect her that much that I would not do that to her.
And you'd respect yourself more than anything, is that
Mhm.
respecting your own boundaries, and that you only want to be with that person. That's
Yes,
also that.
absolutely, absolutely. The world that we live in is funny. So.
There's a lot to learn, and I definitely do my best to pick
Mhm.
up the lessons when I see them. And intuition is a big thing that I have learned to lean into, because the truth is, in all the situations that I've come across where it's like in hindsight, I'm like, oh man, that was a disaster from a mile away. My
Mhm.
gut was telling me that from the very beginning, but
Mhm.
there was like this fantasy land, this
Yep.
romantic idea of what I wanted it to be that didn't let me accept what my gut was telling me, what my intuition. You may call that a spirit guide, you may call that
Yep. Mhm.
God, whatever it is, how you refer it to. But for me, it's like that guidance, that inner guidance that says, hey, go left. You're going right. You need to go
It's
left here.
it's funny you say that because every relationship that I walked away from, I walked away when my spirit guides and God of my own understanding, universe told me to do so. And it would
Mm,
come in a form of like I'll be sleeping at night. Like I was dating one girl. We were together for like 6 months. She had like a lot of anger issues or whatever the case may be. And I had just moved to Savannah. And I was sleeping and I tossed and I turned and I heard she's not gonna make it. And I was like, oh shit, here we go.
mm.
So when my intuition speaks to me and my spirit guides speak to me, that's when I'm like, all right, cool, bet. My time with you is done and over with.
I've never experienced it quite like that. You know what it is? I refer to it as like a maybe actually maybe you're right. It's a loving quiet voice. It's
Mm-hmm.
just a very like go left. Like there's no
Mm-hmm.
anger behind it. There's just that inner gut feeling of like
Mm-hmm.
this is not the situation for you. Like this
Yep.
is not. It's
Yeah.
go that way, and I'll
Sometimes
be like,
mine's is subtle, and sometimes mine's sometimes could be subtle, and sometimes it could be very stern,
mm,
like disciplinary and stern. Like, nah, we ain't doing that today. We are not doing that today.
that
So,
has happened very very rarely that happens, but it has happened that way where it's like it like hits you in the face, because sometimes
yep.
that's what I do need is that I want it to be something, and that's the stubbornness that I want it to be this way, and then it's like no, it's like a
Yep.
tap on the wrist. No, it's
Yep.
not that.
It's like when your mom hits you as a child because you touched the stove and you weren't supposed to
Yep.
touch it.
I have experienced that on rare occasion. Most of the time, it's just like, hey, go that way. But that's only because I've actually learned to listen to it.
Yeah.
When I was ignoring it, was the only time that I had experienced that.
Oh yeah. Me too. And my spirit guides don't play with me. Like I know when they're fully present and next to me in a way, and I'm like, oh shit, here we go. So it's those types of things. But yeah, I don't question it because I used to question it, but now I'm just like, okay, all right, cool, bet. Duly noted, we'll do it because I don't want you to be slapping me around. I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah, I hear you loud and clear now. I understand you.
Oh yeah.
Before it was there was a thing of um, I used to think that it was coming from just my own thoughts, and I'm like, yeah, I'm probably wrong, but it's really not that. It's an actual like that's your
Hmm.
guidance, because the gut feeling has never been wrong.
Yep.
I have failed my gut feeling. That I've
Hmm.
done. I've ignored it and been like, no, I want to go this way. I would like for this to work, and so I'm like, I'm gonna go this way, and it just keeps the thing keeps happening over and over again. It's like go left, and it gets just louder and louder. Go left, and then
Yep.
it's like I hear you.
There's a meme. It's like this is you, and it's like a person full of chaos, and this is your spirit guide. It's like,
Those were mine a few times. I could tell you that.
yep, mine too. Mine too. I mean, I have some strong ass spirit guides that been rocking with me since the time that I was one that was assigned to me. Like this girl, it's like buckle your seatbelt because this chick gonna take you on a ride. So,
Yeah. So I would like to talk about what do you have going on today? What you mentioned, being part of the magazine and doing all
yeah.
that. Can you tell
Uh
me about
huh.
what you do today?
I am a jewelry crafter. I make bracelets, waist beads, and stuff like that. And it's all intentional to just help women to empower themselves, to accept their bodies as is, and to make sure that they own who they are. Four-time self-published author, of course, have that going on. And the magazine, No Fucks Given magazine, which is pretty much truly something I absolutely love because it's just doing what you're doing, but in magazine form, where I'm
Hmm.
interviewing people and real, raw, honest, authentic individuals. Because I've looked at other magazines and I can tell the person who was being interviewed wasn't really fully truthful in what they wanted to say. There was a limit of fear there. So whenever I'm interviewing people, I'm like, you can be as raw and unfiltered as you want to be. And it comes with contributing writers and other things that I'm doing along with it. I launched it on February 1st, so it's going well. It's on Substack, of course. Doing that. Also, I used to be a wedding officiant. I used to do that for 7 years off and on in Savannah. So I love that because I love love and like to write. And it's so funny because I read, but I don't read as much as I write as an
Same.
author. Okay, cool. We're in good company.
Yep.
And just being me, and I just turned 48 last month, so just being grateful and thankful for the age that I am, the wisdom that I am, enjoying my relationship that I have with my partner, and just seeing how we can just build life together and just taking it one day at a time, waking up with gratitude in the morning, and consistently healing and working on this journey called Dhylles.
I love it. I have a couple of
Hmm.
questions for you before we do wrap up. These are
Hmm.
normally questions I ask every guest at the end of our conversations. And what I want to ask you is, have you discovered purpose? And if so, what is it? And if not, what do you think it might be?
Purpose for me is just being my authentic, beautiful, wonderful self. And purpose for me is being as free as I want to be and just speaking truth and encouraging and empowering other people to dig deep within themselves, to speak the truth, speak their truth, and own who they are and be their authentic self with no fucks given, of course. And just enjoy who they are, just be present within themselves. That's what I'm here to do because everyone who comes to me or crosses my path has told me that, you helped me bring out the best of myself. You saw me and heard me and validated me and held space for me when no one else did. And I, in turn, tell them, well, you can do that for yourself as well. You don't have to wait for me to do it. But I'm glad that I'm able to be that vessel or catalyst of your transformation and just how I transform myself in my life and how vulnerable and truthful I am about who I am as a person. I'm not afraid to share and I'm not afraid to like speak my truth, even if it's uncomfortable, because in my mind it's like I could be helping someone who is having a hard time going through depression, anxiety, whatever the case may be. And if they hear my story and they have had a similar situation, it's like, what the fuck is my excuse? She's been through it the same way as I have. So why am I sitting here waiting and feeling sorry for myself when I could be living my best life?
That's the truth.
Hmm.
And if you could speak to your childhood self, what would you say?
I'm proud of her for like really, really being able to still be the powerful little being that she is, despite the fact that she was violated in such a way. And I'm proud of her for like allowing me to help her rise from the ashes. I'm proud of her.
Where can we follow you? Where are you? Where's the best way for our viewers to find you?
Well, I'm so grateful for my name because I'm the only name on social, Dhylles. You just type in my name, Dhyles. I'll pop up everywhere. A Facebook, Insta, but now it's under No Fucks Given. So if you type in No Fucks Given magazine, you'll see my stuff. It's on there.
Dhylles, thank you so much for your time today. What an amazing conversation it
Joshua.
was. I hope we talk again soon.
And I'm so proud of you for being the age that you are and being as wise as you are and wanting to like really dedicate yourself to your own healing, discovering who you are as a spiritual being having a human experience as well as a human being having a spiritual experience, because not a lot of people your age do this type of work. They wait until they're in their like 40s and 50s and 60s, and the fact that you're doing it now is impressive. So celebrate you and giving you your flowers at the same time, because it took me till I was in my 40s to be like, well, fuck, like I gotta, take myself, hold myself accountable and responsible for me, my life, and what I want that to look like for me. And it's been a journey. And even though I was doing it, I didn't realize I was doing it. So for you to like really process and sit with the self, which is uncomfortable and scary, is brave. And I'm proud of you for that.
You're very kind. I really appreciate you saying that. That means a lot to me, truly. And thank you very much. And by the way, I do want to say that also there's a perfect time. Everybody goes through their perfect time, and
Mhm.
there is no right or wrong.
Nope, not at all. That's what I'm saying. It's always like this. You have moments where just like high, and then there's moments where it's low. But in those moments where it's low, it's just leaning into yourself and leaning into what it is that the lessons that you're being taught, the lesson that you're learning. So,
Phyllis, you're incredible. Thank you so
so
much.
you
Hope to talk to you soon.
take care.
Bye
Thank you again.
bye.
I appreciate you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.